Looking to gain some ground in FPL? Stick with me and I've got some differentials to show you. Okay, first up I've got Kyle Walker. Sits at 4.8 million and he's 3.2% owned. I think Man City have got a really nice fixture run. They double in 20, as you can see on that grid, and they've also got a double game week in 23 as well. Based on the games that he's played pre his injury before the World Cup, he started 7 of 8 Premier League fixtures when he was fit. So that makes me think that he's pretty nailed in that Man City defence. Also being 4.8 million, I think he's pretty much the cheapest Man City defender that's guaranteed to start games, basically. And I do expect Man City to keep some clean sheets, even in those tricky fixtures that they do have. They've got a lot of red on that fixture grid. I'm conscious of that. But yeah, I do back them to keep some clean sheets. The only obviously real downside to Kyle Walker is that he doesn't get forward all that often. He's really picked in that team for his pace to cover on defence. So he's not really going to get amongst the attacking returns. But regardless, I think for 4.8 million, he offers great value, really low ownership, and gives you a chance to get on that Man City defence. Next up, I've gone for Man United's Anthony Martial. I think at 6.7 million, he offers great value. I don't think his ownership will stay quite as low as 2%, but I definitely don't think he's going to be a massively popular player. In my opinion, I think he's a good pick. Looking at his per 90 stats, they're absolutely off the chain. He's got over 1 expected returns per 90. It's almost up with the level of Erling Haaland. I think Haaland's got about 1.2. So I think that's all you really need to know about Martial. He's pulling similar numbers per 90 that Haaland is. Obviously, he's not played the minutes so far. He's been injured for most of the season, but I'd like to think the World Cup break gives him a chance to properly recoup and recover and get fully fit for the restart. Man United have got a really decent fixture run there, and yeah, I think now Ronaldo's gone as well. Martial is probably their first choice centre forward, so I think he's a great pick. And yeah, if you're looking to be a bit different, he offers that as well. Similar sort of ilk to Martial, although personally I don't think he's quite as good in terms of his numbers, but it's Eddie Nketiah. He's currently less than 1% owned in FPL, similar to Martial really. I think a few more people will be buying him once their transfers get confirmed. But Gabriel Jesus has just had knee surgery and he's supposedly out for 3 months, and that makes me think that Eddie Nketiah is likely to get some good minutes for Arsenal. Arsenal got really nice fixture run. I think that's pretty decent, and they've also got a double in 23 as well. But yeah, comparably his stats aren't quite as good as Martial. He's a little bit cheaper, but yeah, he's only getting 0.6 returns per 90. But regardless, I think he could be a nice differential for you. Next up is a player that's currently in my FPL wildcard draft, and that's Sven Botman from Newcastle. He's 4.4 million, which makes him the cheapest starting Newcastle defender. He started all of the last 8 Premier League games for Newcastle. I think one of the questions that we had about him at the start of the season was how nailed is he, but I think he's passed that test now, given that he started the last 8 Premier League games. Newcastle are up there in terms of top defensive teams as well. In fact, they're joint number 1 with Arsenal for fewest goals conceded. One of the downsides to Botman, similar to Walker really, is that he doesn't really get amongst the attacking returns. His expected goals and assist stats, they're not really up there, and he doesn't yet appear to be a threat from set pieces. So really, you're sort of banking on those defensive returns. But for 4.4 million, I don't really think you can ask for much more. And I also think Newcastle got a really nice defensive run there in terms of fixtures. And I do expect some clean sheets there. So yeah, I think Sven Botman is a really nice option for your team. And it also helps that he's really low owned, so he's a good differential as well. Next up is Leeds United's Somerville. There's not too much to tell about him really. I think we all know that he scored 4 goals in his last 4 Premier League games, including winners against Liverpool. I think he looks a really good option. I would call that sort of cheap midfielder spot the Pereira position. And I think he does provide a decent alternative to Andreas Pereira. And he's also got really nice fixtures after game week 18 as well. His returns per 90 are really good, 0.76. That's up there with some of the best midfielders in the game. Obviously, I think that's a purple patch, and he will slightly go down after the World Cup, or at least I think that's what's going to happen. But he's definitely amongst the attacking returns more than Andreas Pereira is, so I really do think he's a good option. And yeah, he's one to weigh up, I think, against Pereira, or to have as like alongside him with a 3 sort of premium midfield team if you fancy going that way. But yeah, I think Somerville is a really good option for your team, and it also helps that he's really low owned as well. Next up is a man definitely to monitor to start with. I think Potter was quoted saying that he's being integrated back into first team training after an injury, and that's Wesley Fofana. At 4.3 million, he is absolutely the cheapest Chelsea defender, and at 1% ownership, he's also a nice differential too. Chelsea got a double game week in 19. I do believe that Fofana is one of the first choice Chelsea defenders when he is actually fit. So yeah, I think he offers a really nice option, and I can definitely see some clean sheets for Chelsea there. I know they haven't been lighting the world up before the World Cup. In fact, they were looking pretty pony defensively, but I do think they can turn things around. And at 4.3 million for Fofana, I don't think you can really turn your nose up at that price. I think he's a really good option if you're looking for a nice, cheap differential defender. Next up is Andy Robertson. Yeah, he's in at 6.8 million, which I think is probably the cheapest I've seen him for some years in FPL. Only 5% owned as well, so that's really nice low ownership as well, and he could be a good differential option for you. I sort of think, I don't know about the Liverpool defence. They looked very sus towards the World Cup. I've just got a feeling that they're going to turn it around after the World Cup period. Robertson's obviously had the full time off as well, so he'll be fully rested. And yeah, I think he's a really good price for what he offers as an upside, and he's cheaper than Trent as well. I think that Liverpool defensive run in terms of fixtures is looking really nice as well, and his stats per 90 Robertson is really good as well. He's got 0.4 expected attacking returns per 90 as well. So yeah, I think those stats look really nice, and he's a really good option as a differential for your team. And then finally, one of FPL's stars of last season, Jared Bowen. Obviously a bit more expensive than some of the players we've gone through at 8 million. Only 3% owned, so nice low ownership there for you. And I think he's got a really nice fixture run there for 18 to 21. He's obviously had the full rest during the World Cup as well, so he'll be grafting away in training for West Ham, and hopefully 100% for the start of the restart of the season. I know he's not done very well in terms of attacking returns this season, but his expected stats are still right up there. He's still getting 0.41 expected returns per 90. That's not top level Premier League anymore, really. The likes of Saka, etc. are much better. But I do think the fact that he's been rested during the World Cup, along with quite a lot of the other West Ham players as well, I think that makes him a really good option. And yeah, I do expect him to refine that form of last season, because whenever I've watched West Ham, Bowen still looked just as bright as he was last season. He's just not been getting amongst the goals, and I really do expect that to change. So I'm backing Jared Bowen to be a nice differential for you. And that concludes the video. I hope you found that useful. Some differential options for you there if you fancy yourself a bit of a gambler, or you just want to regain some ground in FPL. If you did like it, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. We've still got plenty more FPL content coming your way before the restart. See you in the next video.